Hi, I'm Brynne Tillman, CEO of Social Sales Link and the LinkedIn Whisperer. Also, the co host of the podcast Making Sales Social. I'm so excited to be here with Phil today.
So, Brynne, I know, dear, you've gotten lots of really crappy advice. What is the
Hmm.
worst advice you've ever gotten?
So, I think the worst advice I ever received in sales was pretty early on in my career when I was doing pretty well doing sales myself. And the company I was working for at the time decided they were going to streamline it, and they spent a ton of money on pitch decks and and kind of changed the normal conversational way that we were selling. And we had to like sit down, and the first three slides were like, here are all the companies we've helped, right? And here's what this client had to say about us. And so discovery was not to like 15 minutes in, let alone any kind of real conversation. And it was a Fortune 1000 company. But, I ended up moving on, which was fine. And I had great successes there prior. But I think the worst advice was let's all sell exactly the same and literally pitch instead of build relationships, rapport, and try to solve problems.
Ooh, that's horrible. All sell the same. Well, that doesn't work. And pitch, pitch, pitch. Yeah, nobody wants a pitchy person, right? I would say, Kathy Klotz's guest always says, get out of my sales pants, right? Like, just like, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. So, if memory serves, Brynne, you and I have been on social for a long time and been
Yeah.
conversationalists for a long time. So take me back when you discovered LinkedIn. Like, what did you think? Like, what first impressions of LinkedIn?
Oh, so the very, very first impression was this thing is frustrating because I signed up, I followed all of their prompts, I uploaded every single Gmail connection I had in the whole world. And when I came on the next day, I was shut down because I spammed people, even though that's what they told me to do.
I remember
So,
those days. Yeah, that's
yeah,
horrible.
it was horrible. But then I said, all right, let's see what this thing can do. It's like test drive this baby. And immediately I saw the magic of LinkedIn for sales. And it wasn't a sales tool when I found it, it was just a job seeking recruiting tool. Nobody was looking at it as sales, but I saw the magic because it solved my biggest problem. And my biggest problem was the top of the funnel prospecting. I hated to cold call. I just hated it. Some people love it. Some people might find success. When your job is a third of your life, you need to love what you're doing. And even though they said, if you keep, just keep calling and every rejection is closer to a yes. And it just didn't make me happy. What made me happy and what made me successful in sales early on is I really helped clients. They liked me. And when I asked for referrals, I got some. And so that's how I grew my business. The biggest challenge for me was when I asked clients for a referral, they'd go, can't think of anyone right now, but if someone should ask, I'd be happy to introduce you, right? So immediately I saw the big win in LinkedIn because it gave us access to their Rolodex. It allowed us to go through and search and filter, still does, search and filter our connections. So when I went to my client, instead of saying, who do you know? I would say, hey, Phil, I noticed you're connected to like a whole bunch of people that I'd love to get in front of. Before I reach out to them, can I run these names by you and get some insights? And so a whole bunch of names, which could be 20, 30 names, might come down to 8 that you say, I know them well, you'd be a good fit. And then I could either ask for introductions or permission to name drop. Thanks, Phil, for your time. When I reach out to them, can I tell them you're my happy client and all the great things we were able to do for you, and how you think me having a conversation with them is well worth their time? Yes, awesome. So I may just go out and take all the pressure off of you, my client, to prospect for me, and just get that permission to name drop. And we're finding it very close to the same results. And we also keep control of the sales cycle.
Yeah. Well, permission is key. I think for
Yeah.
a lot of folks, if we've done a good job of building our network, if we're intentional about that,
Mhm.
and we're positioned in the right ways, we have opportunities there to serve. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about that. But let's get back to the beginning here, and that is, serving your clients. And I would argue that that is the one, well, maybe it isn't a pillar of social selling that we can't overlook, and that is you have to be good at what you do.
Mhm.
Like you have to serve well. So I know that you serve well. We've worked together.
Mhm.
We've been around each other a long time. So
Mhm.
tell me, Brynne, like when you deliver an outcome, like what do your clients say that Brynne does for them at Selling Link? Social Sales
It's
Link.
social sales link. So what do? We help them convert lurkers into engagers and engagers into conversations. Right? That's really what we do. The first level is, I mean, well, that's one way. The other thing is we help them get more client referrals and networking referrals. So ultimately, we're helping them start more sales conversations on a consistent basis. That's really what we're delivering.
Cool. Yeah, and that's important. I mean that's key. And I would say that that's in between, I would argue, in between prospecting and research and discovery and actual meeting is you have to have those people that you actually know you can serve. Right? This is the big miss
Yeah.
because I think we spend so much time on numbers and on to your point, right, about engagement. I mean, that's great and I love when you comment on my posts. That's wonderful. But frankly, you're not going to buy me. Let's just be honest, right? Like you do what I do. We're peers in that
Hmm.
way. So
Hmm.
what I really want is a real conversation with the right person. So how do we, how do we do that, Brynne? How do we actually go from, hey, we're a connection to,
Yeah.
hey, you're someone I can help to actually creating a conversation?
So there are lots of workflow pathways, right? So let's just choose one to talk to. So the first thing is building the list, right, of who your ideal people are. And so creating the filters and the LinkedIn free has pretty darn good filters right now for you to identify your ideal prospects. And you can start with your first degree connections. So if that's our workflow, let's take inventory of our first degree connections and identify who we want to talk to that we're already connected to, but we're ignoring. That's one workflow, right? So what do I do? So now I do this search and I get 1,800 people that I'm connected to. It's big, right? So there are a couple things that we can do to bring it down. One of them and is to qualify. The first level of qualification is who's engaged on LinkedIn. So I may, to qualify, I'll right click, open them in a new tab, go down to activity. Do they have activity? If they do, in this particular workflow, I'm going to say, yes, they are now qualified to go into my workflow. They meet my filters, they're my ideal prospect, and they're engaging on LinkedIn. Okay. So now I have that list. 1,800 now goes to 372 because not everybody's active, right? So now I have this 372 first degree connections that meets my standards, which includes active. So what do I want to do? I think I might want to engage first and engage thoughtfully, slow down your outreach to speed up your outcome, read the post, think about your comment. Don't just say great post, nice, thanks for sharing, right? Like be thoughtful around it because all of this is about building trust and building relationships, right? So the only way we're going to do that is if we really tailor everything we do to the person we're engaging with. So engage, that's great. The next thing I do, now that they're on your radar and you're on theirs, is potentially go out and create a poll and ask for their insights. Everyone loves to be asked their insights. So you create, and polls, by the way, right now on LinkedIn are 450 more times that people are. Richard Vonderbloom just did a study, and it says they're 450 times seen, 450 times more than a traditional post. That's a lot, right? And every vote in the algorithm is treated like a comment. So if you get 20 votes, that's a heavy weighted. You get now, so more and more people are seeing it. So polls are the hot thing right now. In 6 months, I may say, polls aren't working, but right now they are. Even if you're like, I hate polls, I see them all the time, I don't care. they're working, especially if you get it into their inbox. So Phil, now I send you a little message. Phil, really enjoyed the post that you shared. I commented on it, right? On A, B, and C. It made me think that you might. I wouldn't say. I would probably say something like, based on your engagement, I'd love your one-click vote on a poll specifically for social sellers, right? Because I've tailored this to you. If you're open, I'd really appreciate your insight. And then I send you the poll in the inbox, right? And there are times where we send content like that when we're asking for the one-click vote. And there are times where we ask permission to send content. So you don't always want to just spam inbox. But at this point, I engaged on your stuff. I visited your profile, so you might see that notification. I engaged on your stuff. And now, based on my engagement with you, I want your point of view. But now these are steps, right? It's not a connect and pitch, right? It's not I'm in sales, I want to schedule right away. You have to earn the right. You have to earn the trust, right? And now they vote on your poll, and based on what they vote, you may have insights to share. And now it's permission based. Phil, thanks so much for voting on my poll. Based on you voting C, I've got insights I'd love to share with you around X, Y, and Z, and I'd love to hear how you're implementing A, B, and C. Are you open to a quick Zoom call? Right? And so it's paced. I touch a couple of times. I engage a couple times. I ask your point of view. And this is someone you're already connected to, so there's probably been some engagement along the way. Hopefully when you connected, you sent a welcome message, right? And so at the end of this, right, we're just warming it up. Like I ran into you at a networking meeting and we have this little conversation back and forth, and I ask you how you're doing. And then by the end of this, I'm like, hey, I'd love to really kind of find out what you're up to, share some ideas for you. Are you open to that? And you've warmed it up enough. You've made them feel important enough that, if there's an opportunity there, it'll open itself up.
I like that workflow, and I really appreciate that thoughtfulness that you went through that, right? Engaging thoughtfully, creating a poll and ask for insights based on their vote, right? Ask for permission to share, and then ask for what they think. I mean, I think that's soft and honest enough to see, is there any value in our conversation going any further? Even if all we do is exchange this, we still added value. And I think that's really important. And that is one of the things that stands out about you, Brynne, is you're all about the value. You give a lot of value. You're a big value dropper for people.
I'd like to think so. I mean, it's definitely part of our mission. Social selling only works when you detach from what you want from what the prospect is worth to you, and you attach to what you're worth to the prospect. There are a million options out there. There are thousands of us out there, right? And so when people are making a decision on what social seller or social sales trainer do we want to work with, they're going to make their decision on who's already influenced me in the way I think of LinkedIn and social selling. And for any of you, the viewers today, think about, or listeners, wherever you're consuming this, think about, instead of telling your prospects how you can help them, actually help them, right? Move it from we help companies like you to just providing value. So Corporate Visions did a study. I hope I get this right. I think I'm close. 74% of 74% of buyers chose the sales rep or company that was first to add value and insight. It's not the one that pitched them first. It's not even the lowest price. It's who was first to influence the way I think about things. And when you embrace that, 3/4 of the people are making a decision based on who educated them well. I think salespeople need to be educators.
Totally. Yeah, the stat is 74% of executive buyers will choose to work with a company that helps them create that buying vision, that adds that value. So right on the money there with that, Brynne. So important.
Is that a Corporate Visions statement?
Yep, but it sure is.
It
absolutely
okay.
is. Yep. So I Googled it while you're talking.
Googler.
So, yes, I am. I've got a wicked googly here. So yeah. So with that, we've given a lot there. So let's back up though, because I think it's important that we talk about your pillars of social selling, the 5 most important things that you find work for folks. And I think these are super important. So let's start with the first one. Let's talk about profile, because if your profile sucks, if your profile isn't aligned, if your profile looks barren, it doesn't matter if you do what you just said. They're like, you're a robot, or you're not real, or you're not really valuable. So let's talk about profile, Brynne, because I know this is something you're passionate about. And for some people, they're like, well, mine's good enough, but a lot of times it's not. So talk to me about profile and why the profile matters so much and what's on it.
So whether you're using LinkedIn or not, if you have an appointment with someone, they're going to Google you, and your LinkedIn profile is coming up in the top 3 almost every single solitary time, maybe the top 1, right? So this is their first impression of you. If they click through and it says, I am a top negotiator and I've made President's Club 3 years in a row and I am, no one is going to want to talk with you except a recruiter maybe, right? Because that's what that's built for. So we need to convert our profile from a resume to a resource. This needs to be a landing page where people get to test drive you a little bit. And really the profile needs to hit 5 points. It needs to resonate with your buyer. So the first thing it needs to do is that buyer needs to know that you work with people like me. The second thing it needs to do is create curiosity. They've got to lean in and say, this is worth reading a little bit more. The third thing is it needs to teach them something new. If it's just interesting and there's nothing new, there's no compelling reason, right? Well, I skipped that, but you need to teach them and have them go, oh, that's interesting. The fourth thing is what they just learned needs to get them thinking differently about their current solution or their current situation. So I learned this and now I go, boy, we're not doing that, or wow, that would be cool in our company right now. And then the fifth one is we have to create a compelling moment. And this is where I talked about lurkers to engagers. It is very difficult. I mean, you can see who viewed your profile. If you have any kind of premium, you can see the last 90 days. If you have the free, you only see the last 5. You miss a lot. You just do, right? So when people visit your profile, and a lot of them are in anonymous mode, so then you're missing them all no matter what level you are. So we need to change that lurker, that person that visited our profile, into an engager, which could be they accept your connection request. They ask you to connect. They engage on something, some article so that you know who they are. And that's in content too. We can't build a rapport or a relationship or even the slightest conversation with a lurker. We have to create a compelling moment to get them to engage in some way so we know who they are. Okay. Right. So your profile, and I'll kind of round it out, needs to not be your resume in the traditional way that we have it set up now. We need to make sure that there's so much value in our profile that they're excited to have a conversation with us.
So excited to have a conversation with us. So give me an example, Brynne. So let's talk about your profile, right? Or you can pick somebody else's. Like, give me something that gets people excited to talk to you.
So we start with the challenge in the about section. So it's the challenge, right? So if we were to talk about my challenge, the buyer's journey has changed. They're self-educators. And it's very difficult in the traditional way of selling to engage them. And so if you're not leveraging LinkedIn and social selling, you're behind the ball. Now we provide 5 insights. And in fact, they're the 5 pillars in mine. We talked about the profile being the first one. We still have 4 more to go. But we talk about how important and value in there. So my prospect, if it's an individual coach entrepreneur, or if it's a sales leader that's looking at this across the board for their whole team, they're going to say, oh my gosh, our profiles are not positioned right. And I taught them, boy, it would be awesome if my team knew how to social listen it better so that, go through the pillars, right? So that they can engage more personally with their. So there's education in there where you get them going, that's really cool. I wish we had that. We need that. And when you position it that way, and it's not, and we have a compelling moment that ultimately wraps it up with like a call to action that if you and your team are not hitting all five pillars, let's chat whether or not we decide to work together. I'm happy to provide insights and actionable steps that you can use immediately. And I am, and I do, right? So now this about section becomes like this, I want that, I want that, I want that. Oh my gosh, she's willing to help me. Happy to take that call. But it's also when I get to the point in engaging where I ask for a call, like if we got to workflow and we finally asked for the call, they're going to vet whether or not this is worth their time. So if they get to my profile and it either looks like a resume boring or it feels like a pitch, which is even worse for salespeople, I'll never convert. So our profile really needs to show up as value.
Yeah. It's interesting that you use the word convert, right? Because in sales, conversion often means a sale, but really the first conversion that we have to make is engagement. The second one is, will they accept the fact that, hey, I think that you could add value to my life?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big question that is always being asked. Can I add value to my life? So if folks talk about quota crushing salesperson, if they talk about all the awards they've won, if they talk about how they're the best at, whatever they're doing, most people are pretty turned off by that because we're, as a culture, I mean, we're humble, right? We want to be humble, or at least we want to pretend like we're humble, right? That we don't really want someone to say how great they are until we ask them, right? We want them more to report the news than we want them to thump their chest. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big miss for a lot of folks on that profile. So, okay.
And if I could just share, even in life, when you pump your chest, everyone rolls their eyes. They do, right? In life. It's like, oh, really? Is he that insecure, or is she that insecure that she has to just push how great she is? Right? So instead of telling them how great you are, let them experience how great you are. Let them come to the conclusion that you're great. Stop telling them how great you are.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because nobody cares. Because it's in comparison to what, right?
You get laughed at. There are so many people in the sales industry, particularly, and in social selling. Like they go out and they talk about, how fabulous they are and how much they've helped their clients and that they're the hero in the story, right? Like that, I've got my cape on and this is what we've done. And I don't think it resonates with people. No. I don't. I think what resonates with people is when you actually help them.
Yeah. Well, and really, we want a guide like Yoda more than we want a hero like a Luke Skywalker, because we want to be Luke Skywalker. If I buy, I want to be Luke Skywalker, not you.
Oh,
right? Imagery. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The hero should be your buyer. You're Yoda. Oh my gosh, Phil, that made my day.
Yeah. So, okay, so we do that, right? But your second pillar helps us do that. And I think this is a big one that a lot of organizations miss, and a lot of sellers and a lot of people just miss. And that's the listening piece here, the social listening. So talk to me, Brynne, about social listening and how we can actually socially listen, because it's so important, so often overlooked.
So there are 3 levels of socially listening. There's the one-on-one. So I look at your profile and I find out what matters to you. What are you engaging on? What are your interests? What people and companies do you follow? So that's, and I'm saying there's a lot of other ones. You can look at their Instagram and see where they vacation, but it's about them as the individual, right? Like that's the first one. The second one is one to company. So I want to look at who their company is, what their company is sharing, what press releases are out there, what's happening, what's their what social triggers might I see happening? Are they hiring? Where are they hiring? And Sales Navigator helps to do a little bit of that. And then there's one to industry, right? And so now I want to look at their industry and what trends are happening in their industry. So, there really could be a fourth, which I'm now inventing in real time, which is one to their client. Who is their client? What is their client's industry? What's happening to their client, right? So we have one to company, one to industry, and one to, I don't know how to say it yet, to whom they serve, right? And the industry they serve. I could go down rabbit holes here. But the bottom line in social listening is we need to understand what matters to them, what matters to their company, and what's happening in their industry in order for us to engage in a way that's tailored to them. And if we don't take the time to do that, we never earn the right to get the conversation, right? If you feel like my message to you is canned, right? You're not going to take, in today's spam world on LinkedIn, there's no way you're going to take my call, right? But if I talk about a podcast where I heard you, or I did some research and I see, you have your company just won some award, and I reach out to you and I say, hey, congratulations on the award your company won. You must be pretty proud to work for them. That's not going out to everyone. That got tailored to you. And you start to build trust, and that's where the beginnings of a relationship gets formed. So that's the listening piece. There's other listening, but when you're prospecting, to me, that's like major.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Google Alerts and Talkwalker and, looking at profiles and other kind of social stalking tools. So do you have a favorite tool, Brynne, that you've found that's helped you?
So for me, you're going to laugh at, outside of LinkedIn, which is my favorite tool, I actually love Googling the company name and clicking on the news tab.
Yeah.
It's just so easy. It's real time, and I get stuff that I don't seem to get. So Google Alerts, if I have a top 10 companies I'm working with, but I'm prospecting a lot of different people, so I can't Google alert all of them. I would my email would be horrendous. So I have Google Alerts for my top clients, and I have Google Alerts for a couple of my top prospects. But in real time, if I want to reach out, and I just Google especially for a larger company, there's almost always great stuff. Now, here's the key. Social listening is also read it. Don't send them something, congratulations for this press release of your bankruptcy, right? Read it. Know what you're sharing. Be smart. And this is where, again, we've got to slow down our outreach to speed up the outcome.
I have to share this. So today I read a little Instagram post that somebody actually posted about their cat dying. And I'm like, that's super sad, right?
Super sad.
Super sad.
And people are loving it.
And people are, people are loving it. They're commenting. But then I can just hear some salespeople that say, hey, congratulations on your new pet. Because that's the first time, right, that they posted about their animal. Or they go back and comment on an old picture of their cat. Or, one of my favorites is the whole, you wish somebody a happy birthday without going to their profile first, and you find out that they died 3 years ago. And it's like, you have to do the work.
Yeah, no, that's hard, though, because the profile doesn't tell you that.
No, well, hold on. That yes and no. So if you look, there's no recent activity. Mm-hmm. That's a clue. Go somewhere else, right? Look and see if there's recent activity anywhere. Often what happens when somebody passes is they memorialize one of their profiles, but probably not all of them. So there's a post, right? So you have to listen. Their name. Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, you could Google their name. Yep, or you can go to a different platform, right? Because some people don't put those out. Because now newspapers, that's one of the only things they can charge you for is an obituary. My stepbrother died a couple weeks ago, and it was $850 to run his obituary in all the local papers in my little town because that's all they can charge you for. So thank you. So yeah, because now the paper is 75 cents and they don't make any money on advertising and their online presence sucks. And, I could go on and on, but they charge you big bucks for this. So my point is this, right? So listen thoughtfully. Don't just listen, right? Actually read. I think super important with that. So Brynne, you're on your profile on LinkedIn. All of your pillars are there, and I think they're great, right? Content strategy, nurturing connections, and warm market prospecting. So let's talk about one more of those in depth instead of just going through all 5 and giving away all your magical secrets, because I know you've got lots of gifts, right? So pick one. Warm marketing? Okay, so great. So let's talk about that. So warm market prospecting is something that a lot of folks need to do more of. In fact, I would argue this is probably the best prospecting for those people that hate to prospect. So let's talk about this, warm market prospecting. Define it and then help us with some insight.
So warm market prospecting means that you're coming in at a higher level of credibility because someone in your network is vouching for you, whether it's an actual introduction or permission to use their name. You are coming into a relationship or into this new conversation with a shared connection and at a higher level of credibility. So there are lots of different ways to do this. If you are prospecting a company, search the company, go look at the people and see first, map out your social proximity. First off, is there anyone inside that company that you're already connected to that you can have a conversation with? If you can, even if they're at a low level, it's a good place to start, right? The next social proximity is 1 degree away. Do you know someone that knows the CEO? And you can see this. If you are a 2nd degree connection to someone inside that organization, you can see who your shared connections are. And now you could reach out and say, hey, Phil, notice that you're connected to Joe Smith at ABC Company. How well do you know him? I plan on reaching out in the next couple of days and I'd love some insights, right? Oh, I'm not asking for an introduction yet. Just a little insight. So Phil, my buddy, will say, oh my gosh, he's great. I worked with him a couple of years ago, or I don't really know how I know him, right? But you may have 7 or 8 connections in common, and you could reach out to all the people you know asking that question. Not can you introduce me, but how well do you know them? And I'd love some insight. So now, oh, he's a really great friend of mine. Would you be willing to jump on just a quick 5-minute call? I'd love to, get your thoughts around him. Sure, I get on a call. Phil, thanks so much for taking my call. And I remember Joe, whatever his name was. How do you know Joe? So here's why I want to meet Joe. Do you think it makes sense for me to reach out? Can I mention we had this call? Now I reach out, Joe, Phil Gerbishak and I were talking the other day and your name came up in our conversation. And when I told him a little bit about what I was doing, he thought I should reach out and introduce myself. I got that in the call. So now I have a 50% shot of Joe taking my call. So now let's say, okay, so Phil, my good buddy, knows one person I want to know. But you know what? Before I make this call out to Phil or message, let me see who else he knows. So I go into Phil and I use my filters and I identify he knows 18 people I want to meet. So maybe my conversation isn't just about Joe. When I reach out, I might say, hey, Phil, I notice you're connected to quite a few people that I'm going to be reaching out to the next couple of weeks. But before I do, would you mind jumping on a quick little Zoom and providing any insights that you have? And if you have the right relationship with someone, they're like, yeah, sure. I may never ask you for an introduction, but that may become 8 people that you say this would be good for you. Thanks, Phil. When I reach out to them, is it okay if I mention we had this call and that you thought it made sense for me to reach out? Now I reach out to all 8 of these people that you said these are good for me, and 4 of them will become conversations because that's the number. Over and over again, we're seeing a 50% success rate around that.
Awesome. Makes so much sense. So what are some, if we're going to get started here on our journey, if you're like, okay, I have been a cold caller my whole life. Mm-hmm. I need to transition from being a cold caller to being a warmer caller to using some social selling. Where do you recommend people get started on doing this? What's the first step or two, Brynne, that they should take?
Well, you have to pay attention to that profile because all roads lead back there. You've got to make sure that that's positioned well, and positioned to convert your connections to conversations. Um, I think it's hard to say where to start depending on where you are, but I would say the next thing is you've got to make sure that your network is purposeful. Go through your CRM, look at all the people you've talked to, connect with them on LinkedIn, because those are a lot of things. As great as your information might be in your CRM is never going to tell you when they switch jobs. Your CRM is never going to tell you when they engaged on a hashtag content on a hashtag that you follow, right? So everyone that you're talking to that is appropriate, you need to connect with. Start there, build the right network. I think that's probably the best place to start.
Awesome. Great advice, Brynne. Paying attention to your profile first and building the right network second. Absolutely. And then I would say, because you've taught me this, and that is don't give up and continue to follow up. Have a process and work your workflow. Really important to have. So Brynne, if people want to connect with you, of course, we want to send them to LinkedIn because I learn a lot from you on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people do. But who are you working with now or who would you like more of to be working with? If people are listening, if they're watching and they're like, oh, hey, Brynne seems really super smart. And she is, by the way. She doesn't just seem super smart. She is. So who would be a great customer for you that if they're listening, like, oh, it's me?
Yeah. Well, there's two things. We have an e-learning coaching for individuals. So for $99, you get the course, and $29 a month is you get 2 coaching sessions a week. It's a drop-in coaching clinic, 2 hours a week that you come in, you ask your questions, $29. Lots and lots of content. It's just how we serve the individuals. My primary business is training sales teams. So going in and really, tailoring a training to meet the needs of a particular sales team and what they're trying to achieve. And then we have everything from a 4-week to a 6-week program, depending if they have Sales Navigator, it's a little bit longer. And it's a powerful program that really gets results.
Awesome. Great stuff.
And go check out my podcast, Making Sales Social.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely listen into Brynne's podcast. Get connected with her on LinkedIn and go to socialsaleslink.com and get to know Brynne Tillman and the team there. Brynne, you're a gift. I'm glad you're my friend. I always learn from you, and I love spending time with you. Thanks for dropping so much smart. See you soon, friend. Thank you, Brynne.
Bye.